At his peak, Darren Lee was one of the fastest linebackers in football.
Sims is leveled by Lee.
He was ridiculous.
Sims loses yardage. Darren Lee again.
I mean, he could take over a game.
Darren Lee has played a heck of a ball game.
However, he went from Sugar Bowl MVP and first-round draft pick to sitting in a Hamilton County jail cell, charged with first-degree murder in the death of his girlfriend, facing life in prison or the death penalty. This is what happened to Darren Lee. The arrest. Darren Lee is 31 years old. He is sitting in a Hamilton County jail cell without bond, facing the death penalty or life in prison. His football career, his freedom, his future, all of it is gone, and it started here. On the afternoon of February 5th, 2026, at approximately 1:30 p.m., deputies from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office arrived at a residence on Snow Cone Lane in Ooltewah, Tennessee. They were responding to a report of CPR in progress. What they found inside that home was not a medical emergency. It was a crime scene. Lee's girlfriend, whose identity has been withheld pending notification of next of kin, was found unresponsive on the couch. Despite attempts at life-saving measures, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The body was transported to the Hamilton County Forensic Center for an autopsy. The death was officially ruled a homicide.
What began as a routine call for deputies ended in tragedy inside of a home just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Investigators finding a woman unresponsive. Her boyfriend, former Buckeye and NFL linebacker Darren Lee, still at the scene and taken into custody. He's now charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence.
According to the arrest affidavit, blood spatter streaked the walls and flooring in multiple areas of the home. Broken glass littered the kitchen. Cleaning materials had been placed in unusual locations, suggesting an attempt to conceal what had happened. Forensic analysis detected blood stains that had been partially cleaned but not eliminated. The victim's injuries were devastating. A 1-inch stab wound to the abdomen, a large dark bruise on her head, both eyes blackened with heavy swelling, multiple bruises across her arms and torso, a circular human bite mark on her shoulder, dried blood on her face and neck. These were not the injuries of someone who fell in a shower. These were the injuries of someone who had been beaten, bitten, and stabbed by another human being over what the physical evidence suggests was an extended period of time. The blood spatter on the walls, the broken glass in the kitchen, the cleaning materials placed in locations where they did not belong. All of it pointed to a prolonged act of violence, followed by a deliberate, if clumsy, attempt to conceal the evidence. Lee was at the scene when deputies arrived. He told responders he found the victim unconscious and believed she had fallen in the shower. The evidence overwhelmingly contradicted his account. Lee bore scratches on his face, hands, and chest. Blood was found inside his cell phone's protective case. His clothing was seized. Items recovered from the home included alcohol, narcotics, and a firearm. There were no signs of forced entry.
Lee's story once looked very different. From New Albany High School to Ohio State, he became a defensive star, helping lead the Buckeyes to a Sugar Bowl victory in 2015. Drafted in the first round by the New York Jets in 2016, he played for several NFL teams, including a Super Bowl winning squad.
The following day, Lee was formally charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. He is being held without bond at the Hamilton County Jail. His court appearance is scheduled for February 11, 2026. The sheriff's office stated that additional charges may be pending.
But off the field, Lee's life was troubled. Arrests for domestic violence and assault stretch back to 2014, involving multiple women. In 2023, he faced probation after pleading guilty to attempted assault on a female relative in Dublin. Now, the most serious allegation yet, the death of his girlfriend, has stunned his hometown and raised urgent questions about a pattern of violence.
That pattern did not begin in 2026. It had been building for nearly a decade. A history of violence. The first publicly visible sign came on June 3rd, 2017, at the Governor's Ball Music Festival on Randall's Island in New York City. Lee was still a Jet, just over a year into his professional career. Videos captured that afternoon showed Lee shouting at a woman believed to be his girlfriend, getting aggressive, manhandling her, calling her names, and dragging her away from a crowd. Bystanders tried to intervene. The situation escalated until teammate Leonard Williams, all 6'5", 300 pounds of him, physically restrained Lee, grabbing him around the armpit armpits, lifting him off the ground and carrying him away. The Jets investigated internally. Head coach Todd Bowles described it as an argument with his girlfriend and opted not to discipline Lee. The NFL reviewed the incident under its personal conduct policy, but cleared both Lee and Williams on August 21, 2017, citing insufficient evidence. No arrests, no charges, no discipline of any kind. The incident vanished from the headlines within weeks, treated as little more than a celebrity squabble caught on camera. A man had been physically aggressive with a woman in front of hundreds of witnesses, and his own 300-pound teammate had to wrestle him away, and the official conclusion from both the Jets organization and the National Football League was that nothing warranted further action. It was not a squabble, it was a preview. What looked like a drunken argument at a music festival was, in hindsight, the earliest public glimpse of a behavioral pattern that would escalate relentlessly over the next 9 years. At every stage, the violence got worse. At every stage, the consequences stayed the same. Nothing. 5 years later, in October 2022, Lee was living in Dublin, Ohio, with Lindsay McGlone, the mother of his 2-year-old son. According to court documents, Lee suspected McGlone of cheating on him. The argument turned physical. Lee allegedly grabbed her by the neck, lifted her, swung her around, and dropped her. He threw a cell phone at her head, striking her ear and causing it to bleed. He grabbed her neck again, leaving red marks. He punched a pillow next to her head. He threatened to kill her. McGlone called the police. The incident was not immediately prosecuted. It would only surface months later, during the investigation of an even more violent episode. In the meantime, Lee remained in the home. He remained in McGlone's life. He remained in the life of their 2-year-old son. The system had received its first formal report of domestic violence from Darren Lee, and the system did nothing with it. On April 3, 2023, Dublin police responded to the same residence after a domestic violence call. This time, the victim was Lee's own mother, Candace Lee. According to the arrest report, Lee pushed her against a wall, threw her to the floor, and struck her face and head 8 to 9 times with a closed fist. McGlone witnessed part of the beating, hearing Candace yell and seeing Lee standing over her with a raised fist.
Thank you for joining us for NBC4 Midday. I'm Monica Day. Developing right now, a former Ohio State national champion and NFL first-round draft pick was in court this morning. Darren Lee, a member of Ohio State's 2014 title-winning team, was arrested on Monday on domestic violence charges. NBC4's Matthew Herchick was in the courtroom for that appearance.
The charges stemmed from 2 separate incidents involving 2 separate women. Police had uncovered the October 2022 assault on McGlone while investigating the April 2023 beating of Candace Lee.
Now, this is Darren Lee here appearing via video call in a Franklin County courtroom this morning. According to court records, Dublin police were called to the home in Dublin around 5:30 yesterday after a woman reported Lee to be physically assaulting another woman in the house. An affidavit reveals that Lee allegedly pushed that woman against the wall twice, then threw her to the floor and struck her in the face and head 8 to 9 times with his closed fist.
But the April 2023 beating was not an isolated event. As investigators dug into the case, they uncovered an earlier incident from October 2022 involving the same household, one that had been reported to police but never prosecuted. The details were just as disturbing.
Now, yesterday's incident allegedly stems from that first case back in October. In that incident, Lee allegedly threw a phone, striking a woman in the head, causing her ear to bleed. He allegedly choked her and punched a pillow beside her head several times before lifting her up by her neck and dropping her to the ground. He also allegedly threatened to kill her during that argument.
During the arrest, police found 2 bags of cocaine on Lee, adding a felony drug charge. Candace Lee was hospitalized. The judge issued a $20,000 bond on both cases and ordered Lee to stay away from both victims. In June 2023, Lee failed to appear for a court hearing, citing medical reasons from Florida. An arrest warrant was issued. Then, in February 2025, Lee accepted a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges of attempted assault and possessing a counterfeit controlled substance. The domestic violence charges were dropped. He received a 90-day jail sentence with 88 days suspended, 2 days served. He was placed on probation through February 2027, 2 days in jail for choking a woman, for beating his own mother's face with a closed fist 8 to 9 times, for threatening to kill someone, for possessing cocaine during the arrest, 2 days. The domestic violence charges, the ones that would have actually named what he did, were dropped entirely as part of the agreement. He walked out of that courtroom with no felony record, no formal domestic violence conviction, and a probation term that required nothing more than staying out of trouble until until February 2027. He moved to Tennessee, where he began a relationship with the woman who would become his next victim. Less than a year later, she was dead. The signs were always there. The news broke on February 6, 2026, and the reaction was immediate and furious. Outlets from ESPN to the New York Post to the BBC ran the story, framing it within the broader context of domestic violence in professional sports. But while the media coverage was measured, the public response was not. On X, formerly Twitter, one user wrote directly to Columbus officials, "This woman is dead because you allowed Lee to get away with his previous domestic assault." Others resurfaced the 2017 Governor's Ball video, reminding audiences that a 300-pound teammate had to physically carry Lee away from a woman in broad daylight, and the NFL's response was to clear him. Some pointed to the February 2025 plea deal, the one that reduced the charges, dropped the domestic violence conviction, and sent him home after 2 days. As the moment the system failed the woman who is now dead, users highlighted the warning signs that had been visible for nearly a decade: the choking, the threats to kill, the cocaine, the beaten mother, the hospitalized victims. Every piece of evidence had been laid out in plain view, processed through courts and investigations, and returned to the public as a man free to find another woman to harm. Ohio State fans expressed heartbreak. NFL fans expressed cynicism. Victim advocacy communities expressed something closer to exhausted resignation. The grim familiarity of watching a documented abuser escalate while every institution tasked with intervening found a reason not to. The broader conversation turned, as it always does, after cases like this, to the NFL's handling of domestic violence. A 2014 analysis by 538 found that domestic violence accounted for 48% of violent crime arrests among NFL players, compared to 21% in the general population. A 2023 study published in Violence Against Women analyzed 117 arrests of NFL players for violence against women and found that higher performing players consistently faced minimal career repercussions. The league's personal conduct policy, overhauled after the Ray Rice incident in 2014, establishes a 6-game suspension for first-time offenses and potential lifetime bans for repeat offenders. But enforcement has been inconsistent, and the policy applies only to active players, meaning retired players like Lee fall entirely outside its reach. No official statements have been issued by the Jets, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Raiders, or the NFL itself. Ohio State has not commented publicly. Lee has been out of the league for years. He is no longer their player. He is, in the eyes of every institution that once celebrated him, someone else's responsibility now. But that abdication of responsibility is itself part of the story. The NFL's personal conduct policy was designed to address exactly this kind of escalating behavior. It was designed to intervene before a pattern became a tragedy. And for Darren Lee, every institution that had the power to intervene, the league, the courts, the teams, chose at every juncture to do the minimum and move on. The people reacting to this story are not interested in institutional silence. They are not interested in carefully worded non-statements from public relations departments. They are interested in the fact that a woman is dead and that every warning sign was there for anyone who cared to look. The choking in 2022 was a warning sign. The beating in 2023 was a warning sign. The cocaine was a warning sign. The 2-day jail sentence was a warning sign. And now a woman is dead in a home where somebody tried to clean the blood off the walls. The rise of Darren Lee. The thing that makes this story so difficult to process is that Darren Lee was not born a monster. He was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, on October 18, 1994. His family moved to New Albany, Ohio when he was young. He played football, basketball, and track at New Albany High School. He was a quarterback. He was fast. He was also, by recruiting standards, unremarkable. A 3-star prospect, the lowest rated recruit in his signing class at Ohio State.
I came in here as the lowest rated recruit out of everybody. We had 26 guys. I was the lowest.
He was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school because nobody knew what to do with him.
Didn't get the respect that other prospects get.
Nobody offered him a scholarship at first. He sent texts to coaches. He showed up to camp after camp. Ohio State eventually took a chance on him, but the offer came with no guarantees. He arrived on campus as a quarterback who would never play quarterback again. The coaches told him to switch to linebacker. He was undersized. They called him a twig. The big question among the coaching staff was where this kid was actually going to play. He did not fit the scheme at quarterback, yet that had been his position his entire life. Swallowing that pride was, by his own admission, one of the hardest things he had ever done, but he swallowed it.
Dude, you're at Ohio State. I don't care if they want you to play kicker. Show them the athlete you are.
His high school track coach used to run him up a hill in New Albany called Dead Man's Hill. Squats first, until his legs burned. Then, when he thought it was over, 15 sprints straight up the incline. Lee credited that training with building the mental resilience that separated him from every other recruit in his class.
He was really training my mind. He wasn't training me to be a track star. He was training my mind for what I was about to see here.
If you quit in sports, when life get hard, you'll quit.
By his redshirt freshman season in 2014, Lee was one of the most important players on the field. Ohio State entered the college football playoff as underdogs. They beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, a game in which Lee was everywhere, leveling ball carriers, disrupting passing lanes, and playing with a ferocity that made the Alabama offense look confused and outmatched. Lee was named the game's defensive MVP. The Buckeyes went on to win the national championship. He finished his college career with 146 tackles, 27.5 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, and 3 interceptions. From 3-star nobody to national champion and Sugar Bowl MVP in under 2 years. The NFL was the obvious next step.
Sims is leveled by Lee.
He was ridiculous.
Sims loses yardage. Darren Lee again.
I mean, he could take over a game.
Darren Lee has played a heck of a ball game.
He was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school, and all of a sudden there he is going toe-to-toe with Alabama.
On April 28, 2016, the New York Jets selected him with the 20th overall pick. He was 21 years old, part of a historic Ohio State class that produced 5 first-round picks, only the second school in NFL history to accomplish that. On draft night, Lee sat in the green room alongside his former Ohio State teammates, Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott, Eli Apple, and Taylor Decker. 5 Buckeyes, all selected in the first round. All kids who had once been roommates and practice partners, now hearing their names echoed across a stage in Chicago with millions of people watching. Lee wore his national championship ring. He joked about how heavy it was. He said it was a reminder of the hard work. He said his mother looked better than everyone else's mother. He was, by every available measure, living the dream that every undersized, under-recruited, overlooked kid in America fantasizes about.
You want a good football player first, and if he has the speed to come with it, that helps out, and I think he has both. He's an inside linebacker. He can play the nickel right now. He's going to grow into a 3-down backer as he goes forward. He makes us a lot faster, and you can do a lot of things with him.
Lee's first 3 seasons with the Jets yielded 241 tackles, 4 sacks, and 3 interceptions across 40 games. He started 36 of those contests, establishing himself as a legitimate NFL starter with tantalizing athletic upside. His speed remained extraordinary, the same speed that had once won him the Fastest Man award at a camp years earlier. But inconsistency plagued his game. He struggled with the mental demands of reading NFL offenses, and his lightweight frame limited his ability to hold up against the punishing professional run game. In 2018, he received a 4-game suspension for violating the league's substance abuse policy, the first concrete indication that Lee's life off the field was fracturing. The Jets traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2019. He earned a Super Bowl ring with Kansas City, though he was inactive for the game itself, a hollow achievement, a participation trophy dressed in diamonds. He signed with the Buffalo Bills in 2020, appeared in 2 games, and was released. He briefly joined the Las Vegas Raiders practice squad in 2021. He never played a regular season game again. His career totals: 302 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 3 interceptions across 58 games. Respectable numbers for a player who never reached the ceiling everyone believed he possessed. By the age of 27, Darren Lee's NFL career was over. The man who had once run Dead Man's Hill until he couldn't stand, who had talked his way into a scholarship, who had transformed his body from a twig into a first-round linebacker. That man had nothing left to fight for on a football field. The discipline, the ambition, the relentless drive that had defined his ascent did not survive the transition out of professional sports. What survived instead was the violence, the aggression, the need to control. And without the structure of a team, a schedule, and a game to channel it into, that violence turned entirely inward toward the women closest to him. What he now faces. If convicted of first-degree murder in Tennessee, Darren Lee faces one of 3 outcomes: the death penalty, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, or life imprisonment with parole eligibility after 51 years. The tampering with evidence charge carries an additional 3 to 15 years. If both sentences run consecutively, Lee will almost certainly spend the remainder of his natural life behind bars. He is 31 years old. The legal road ahead is procedural, but inevitable in its direction. Lee's arraignment is scheduled for February 11, 2026, where he will be formally read the charges and enter a plea. A preliminary hearing will likely follow within 2 weeks, during which prosecutors will present evidence establishing probable cause. If probable cause is found, and given the contents of the arrest affidavit, that outcome appears virtually certain, the case advances to a grand jury for formal indictment, potentially by mid-March. Pre-trial motions, discovery, and plea negotiations could extend the proceedings for months or even years before a trial begins. But the weight of the evidence, as described in the publicly available affidavit, is substantial. The physical injuries to the victim, the forensic evidence of cleaned blood, the scratches on Lee's body, the contradicted story about the shower, the narcotics and firearm found in the home, all of it points in one direction. Lee was on active probation from the 2023 domestic violence case at the time of the killing. That alone could result in additional charges for probation violation and would almost certainly be introduced by prosecutors as evidence of an escalating pattern of behavior: the October 2022 choking, the April 2023 beating, the February 2025 plea deal that let him walk after 2 days, and now, February 2026, a woman dead on a couch in Ultewa with stab wounds, bite marks, and blackened eyes, in a home where the blood had been wiped but not erased. Each incident was more severe than the last. Each response from the system was less adequate than what the situation demanded. And now we are here. The details in the arrest affidavit do not describe an accident. They do not describe a momentary loss of control. They describe sustained, deliberate violence, followed by a calculated attempt to destroy the evidence of that violence. The stab wound to the abdomen, the bite mark on her shoulder, the cleaning materials placed around the home, the story about a shower fall that collapsed under the weight of the physical evidence. There will be a trial, or there will be a plea. Either way, the trajectory is clear. Darren Lee is not walking out of that Hamilton County jail cell as a free man. Not this time. Not after a woman was found dead with a stab wound in her abdomen and a bite mark on her shoulder, while Lee stood in the same home with scratches on his face and blood in his phone case. The question this case raises is not about his future. His future is a prison cell. The question is about the past, about the years of documented violence that preceded this moment, about the systems that processed each incident, the police reports, the court appearances, the plea negotiations, the probation terms, and returned a man who choked women and beat his own mother back into the world with 2 days served, and a probation term he was actively violating when his girlfriend was killed, about the coaches who called it an argument, about the league that called it insufficient evidence, about the court that called it attempted assault instead of domestic violence, about all the careful, bureaucratic language that was used to describe what Darren Lee did to the women around him, language that made it sound manageable, contained, like something that could be addressed with a fine or a suspension or a 2-day jail sentence. It could not be contained, and now a woman is dead. Darren Lee once stood on a stage in Chicago wearing a national championship ring, hearing his name called in the first round of the NFL draft. He had fought for everything he had. He had climbed every hill. He had proven every doubter wrong, and then he destroyed it all, not in a single moment, but through a long, escalating, thoroughly documented pattern of violence against the women in his life, a pattern that the legal system repeatedly acknowledged and repeatedly failed to stop. The women who were victimized by Lee saw it coming. Lindsay McGlone requested a protection order. Candace Lee was hospitalized. The woman at the governor's ball was dragged through a crowd in broad daylight. Each of them, in their own way, signaled that Darren Lee was dangerous. Each of them was told, through the actions and inactions of the systems designed to protect them, that it wasn't serious enough yet. A woman is dead. The arrests, the protection orders, the hospitalized victims, the cocaine, the threats to kill, every piece of this puzzle was laid out in plain view for years. Darren Lee sits in a Hamilton County jail cell without bond. And the question this story leaves behind is not whether he will spend the rest of his life in prison. The evidence suggests he almost certainly will. The question is why it took a woman dying for anyone to take this seriously. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.